Hello my dear students, welcome to Simplified Minds Biology One-Shots. So ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಬಂದು ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್, ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಟಾಪ್ 5 ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ಸ್, ಮಸ್ಟ್ ರೀಡ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ಸು. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಹೌ ಮೆನಿ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್? 10 ರೈಟ್? 10 to 11 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಈ ಚಾಪ್ಟರಿಂದ. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನು ಬಿಡೋ ಹಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತು ಕೆಲವು ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ವಿಚ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್. ಸೊ ಕ್ವಿಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ವಿಲ್ ಸಿ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದೇರ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್. ಸೊ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲೆಕ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್. ನೀವು ನೋಡಿರ್ತೀರಾ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಫಸ್ಟ್ PUC ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಾನು ಯು ಹ್ಯಾಡ್ ಸ್ಟಡಿಡ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಎಸೆಕ್ಷುವಲ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅ ಫ್ಯೂ ಸೆಕ್ಷುವಲ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ಸೊ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಸ್ಟಡಿಡ್ ಅಂಡರ್ 2 ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಸ್. ಒನ್ ಇಸ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್, ಅಂದರೆ ಹೌ ಇಟ್ ಓವರ್ ಆಲ್ ವರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ. ದ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಈಸ್ ಇವೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್, ಅಂದರೆ ಏನೆಲ್ಲ ಇವೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಟು ದ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್, ಯು ನೋ ದೇರ್ ಆರ್ 2 genders, ಒನ್ ಇಸ್ ಮೇಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫೀಮೇಲ್. ಮೇಲ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅಂತ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಟು ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಇವೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಏನೇನಿದೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ 3 ಇವೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಮೇಜರ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. One is gametogenesis, second is fertilization, third is parturition. So idrallu subdivisions ella barutte. Let's study in detail in this coming slides. So reproductive events human nalli enenide, it will start right from gametogenesis. Then it will gametogenesis andre enu. So you know there are 2 gametes. One is male gamete and female gamete, and male gamete is sperm and female gamete is ovum. Gametogenesis ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ genesis of gamete is called as gametogenesis. Name itself decodes it. So second is insemination. Insemination is the entry of sperm into female genital tract. Third is fertilization. Fertilization andre enu, it's a fusion of male and female gamete to form zygote. So zygote will be formed which is of male gamete enu n irutte, female gamete to male gamete is n, plus female gamete is again n, zygote will be 2n, right? We'll discuss that in coming slides. So then implantation. Implantation is the formation and development of blastocyst and its attachment to the uterine wall. Ad hegagatte, it's a beautiful process. Let's see how it happens in future slides. Then gestation. Gestation is the embryonic development within the womb or uterus. The last stage of the reproductive event in human is parturition, which is the delivery of the baby. So all these events occur systematically, and a lot of hormones and a lot of other ella processes tumba coordination inda aguntaddu. We'll see how it happens. So coming to the first thing, then I told about the female reproductive system and male reproductive system anta. So there is a remarkable difference between female reproductive system and male reproductive system makle. So coming to ಏನೇನು ಇರಬಹುದು ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ, ಸೊ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟೋಜೆನೆಸಿಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 2 ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಒಂದು, ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟೋಜೆನೆಸಿಸ್ ಆಗುವಾಗ ಇನ್ ಮೇಲ್ ಯೂಶಲಿ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ರೈಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಇನ್ ಮೇಲ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಪ್ಯೂಬರ್ಟಿ, ವೆರಾಸ್ ಇನ್ ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ರೈಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಫೀಟಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್. ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯಾನಿಕ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗುವಂಥ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ಲೇನೆ ಆ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟೋಜೆನೆಸಿಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದು ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಮುಂದೆ. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್, ಆಸ್ ಯು ನೋ ದರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಮೆನೋಪಾಸ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ವುಮೆನ್ ವಿಚ್ ಈಸ್ ಯೂಶಲಿ 50 year average age ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆನೋಪಾಸ್ ಅಂತ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ ವೆರಾಸ್ ಇನ್ ಮೇಲ್ ಈವನ್ ಓಲ್ಡ್ ಏಜಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ದ ಸ್ಪರ್ಮೆಟೋಜೆನೆಸಿಸ್ ಕೀಪ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನಿಂಗ್, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ದ ಫರ್ಟಿಲಿಟಿ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಮೇಲ್ reproductive system, first we'll study detail about the reproductive system, then the events of reproduction. So a male reproductive system alli what are the organs involved and how is it classified? So usually this male reproductive system is in the pelvic region makle. So what all it includes is it includes pair of testes. So 2 testes irutte along with accessory ducts. Accessory ducts ಯಾವುದು ಅಂತ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. And glands irutte, there are glands which will help in this process. The third is external genitalia. External genitalia irutte. So coming to in detail study of these particular region which is these particular organs which are involved in male reproductive system. First is testis. Testis is outside the abdominal cavity. So adu outside the abdominal cavity irutte. To maintain the temperature it is called as scrotum. scrotum anta heltare. So it is usually outside the abdominal cavity. Why is it outside? It has a physiological significance. Ee question kelbahudu because it has to maintain the low temperature for the purpose of spermatogenesis. So the scrotum temperature will be usually 2 to 2.5 degrees Celsius lesser than the normal body temperature. ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ normal body temperature ಎಷ್ಟಿರುತ್ತೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಕಮೆಂಟ್ ಮೂಲಕ ಹೇಳಿ. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವಿಕ್ ರಿವಿಷನ್ ಫಾರ್ ಯು. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇದು ಸ್ಪರ್ಮೆಟೋಜೆನೆಸಿಸ್ಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಟು ದ ಗ್ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಸ್, ಸೊ ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 250 ಕಂಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಪ್ರಾಕ್ಸಿಮೇಟ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಲಾಬ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅಲಾಂಗ್ ವಿತ್ ದಿಸ್ ಈಚ್ ಲಾಬ್ಯೂಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ 1 to 2 ಹೈಲಿ ಕಾಯಿಲ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಅಸ್ ಸೆಮಿನಿಫೆರಸ್ ಟ್ಯೂಬ್ಯೂಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಸೆಮಿನಿಫೆರಸ್ ಟ್ಯೂಬ್ಯೂಲ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ರೀಜನ್ ವೇರ್ ಯುವರ್ ಸ್ಪರ್ಮೆಟೋಜೆನೆಸಿಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್. ಅದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಇನ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಂದಿನ ಸ್ಲೈಡಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡೋಣ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಟು ದೀಸ್ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸ್, ದೇ ಆರ್ ವೆರಿ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಇದನ್ನು MCQ ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ಕೆಲವು ಸಲ ದೇ ಮೈಟ್ ask you to label something like urinary like seminal vesicle na X anta kodbodu athwa idನ್ನ Y anta kodbittu what is X, what is Y, ಈ ಥರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು. ಇದು MCQ ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ವಿಲ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದಿಸ್. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಟು ರಿಮೆಂಬರ್ ದ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸ್, ಹೌ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಲಿ, ಹೌ ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಲೇಬಲ್ಡ್. ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೆ ನಾನು ಇದನ್ನು ಹಿಂದಿನ ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ ಒನ್ ಶಾಟ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ. ಸೊ ತುಂಬ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್, ಅದನ್ನು ಬಿಡೋ ಹಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. Then coming to seminiferous tubule anta helde. Seminiferous tubule is just a place where inside the testis, so where the spermatogenesis happens. Periodically the spermatogenesis happens here. So seminiferous tubules in inner lining anna 2 regions ಆಗಿ ನಾವು ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಒಂದು ಮೇಲ್ ಜರ್ಮ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಸರ್ಟುಲಿ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಜರ್ಮ್ ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲೇ ನೋಡಿದ್ರು ಇಟ್ಸ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಟು ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ನಾಟ್ ಜರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಇನ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್. ಜರ್ಮ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ಸನ್ನು ಸಿಂಥಸೈಸ್ ಮಾಡುವಂಥ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ಗೂ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಮೇಲ್ ಜರ್ಮ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮಿಯೋಸಿಸ್ ಆಗಿ, ಯು ನೋ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಮಿಯೋಸಿಸ್, ಐ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ರಿಪೀಟ್ ದಟ್. ಮಿಯೋಸಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ರಿಡಕ್ಷನಲ್ ಸೆಲ್ ಡಿವಿಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ರಿಡಕ್ಷನಲ್ ಸೆಲ್ ಡಿವಿಷನ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಸಿಂಥಸೈಸ್ ದ ಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್. Male germ cells of the seminiferous tubule will synthesize a sperm. The process is called as spermatogenesis. And what is the role of Sertoli cells? Sertoli cells will nurture the sperm. Sperm genesis aadmele, this Sertoli cells will help in the nutrition of this particular sperm. Then what is this interstitial spaces? So outside the seminiferous tubules alli red region ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ ನಿಮಗೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಸ್ಟಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಪೇಸಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ರೆಡ್ ಯಾಕಿದೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ವಿಸಲ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಆ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ವಿಸಲ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅಲಾಂಗ್ ವಿತ್ ದಟ್ ದೆರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಇಂಟರ್ಸ್ಟಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸೇರಿಕೊಂಡು ಇಂಟರ್ಸ್ಟಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ Leydig cells. I'll tell you what is Leydig cells. Leydig cells will help in synthesis and secretion of testicular hormone, that is androgen. So idu tumba important to all these names and its functions you have to remember. Explain in detail about the cross section of seminiferous tubules in the question bandaga. You have to just write the structure, write the small diagram barbittu adana hige point wise alli explain ಮಾಡಿ. It's very important. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ that's why I have given it clearly in the form of flow chart. Many would feel this is complex, but it is not complex. It's very simple and beautiful process. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನು ಫ್ಲೋ ಚಾರ್ಟ್ ಥರನೇ ನೀವು ಬರೀರಿ, ಹಾಗೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಸೊ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ತುಂಬ ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ದೆನ್ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಮೇಲ್ ಸೆಕ್ಸ್ ಆಕ್ಸೆಸರಿ ಡಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದೆ. ಆಕ್ಸೆಸರಿ ಡಕ್ಸ್ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವುದಿದೆ ಅಂದರೆ ರೀಟಿ ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಸ್, ವಾಸಾ ಎಫೆರೆನ್ಷಿಯಾ, ಎಪಿಡೈಡಮಿಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವಾಸಾ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಇದ್ರದ್ದು ಮೇನ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಏನು ಅಂದರೆ ಇಟ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ದ ಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಸ್. ಸೊ ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ವೇರ್ ಯುವರ್ ಸ್ಪರ್ಮೆಟೋಜೆನೆಸಿಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್. ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ದಟ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಸ್ಟೋರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ದ ಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಸ್ ಟು where next your male reproductive organ, that is penis ke, that is where it will transport. So coming to the seminiferous tubules, so seminiferous tubules is a place where your spermatogenesis happens. After that it opens into vasa efferentia. Vasa efferentia through rete testis inda it will leave testis and opens to epididymis, and this epididymis will open to vasa deferens and ascends to the abdomen and loop over the This is urinary bladder. UB is urinary bladder. Urinary bladder above idu barutte. Okay na? So after this duct for duct from seminal vesicle kuda illi urethra as urethra is the ejaculatory duct antanu heltivi. There is a common opening. There is only one opening in male. There is no differentiation as in female. So urethra as ejaculatory duct ge ಎರಡು ಬಂದು open ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So then urethra from the urinary bladder, it will open to penis, which is the male external genitalia, and then it will go to urethral meatus. So this is the brief structure of how the entire accessory ducts along with the seminiferous tubule is arranged. So idinna structure ಕೇಳಿದಾಗ ಈ ತರ ಒಂದು structure ನ ಈ ತರ ಒಂದು flow chart ಬರೆದ್ರೆ you will easily get the marks. So you have to just remember this flow chart. ಹಾಗೇನೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಓದ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋದ್ರೆ you can explain it briefly in your own words. Okay, so then at last, so this thing, this male external genitalia, it will large end of the penis is called as glans penis. So loose fold of the skin is called as foreskin. So whatever the lines, whatever the things that I've underlined, it's all the technical words or the words which you have to remember. Idina mention madbeku. These are the keywords which will carry marks in your exams. So coming to male accessory glands ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ್ದಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, pair of seminal vesicles, ಅದು ಹೇಳಿದೆ ನಾನಲ್ಲಿ, seminal vesicle will join to the urethra ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದೆ, which is an ejaculatory duct, then a prostate gland and paired bulbourethral gland. So what is the work of this seminal vesicle? Seminal plasma irutte. Those seminal plasma will be having a lot of nutrients which will nourish the sperm. Among them are just fructose, calcium and certain enzymes irutte makle. Then coming to this bulbourethral gland, a function they might ask, it help in lubrication of penis. So these are the functions of these particular accessory glands. Then coming to brief structure of female reproductive system, which are the organs that are involved in female reproductive system andre, a pair of ovaries irutte, oviducts irutte, uterus irutte, cervix, vagina and external genitalia irutte. This along with a pair of mammary glands together will form the entire female reproductive system. Okay, so this along with a pair of mammary gland, you have to mention this. So if they ask you about the female reproductive system, you have to write it in points. Then they will integrate structurally and functionally to idella process, ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, birth and child care ge idella organs, so they will integrate structurally and functionally to perform these functions together. Fine. So ovaries, what are the function of ovaries? Ovaries are the primary sex organs of female. So what are the functions? They will secrete ovarian hormones along with ovum. Ovum is the female egg, right? This is also called as egg. Then connected to the pelvic wall and uterus by ligaments. So this ovaries are connected to the pelvic wall. Pelvic wall ge idu connect ligaments in the connect ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. This is covered by thin epithelium and it encloses ovarian stroma. So ovarian stroma is of two types, peripheral cortex and inner medulla. In detail I'll explain all these for your NEET exam. ಇವಾಗ ಸದ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಥಿಯರಿಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಕೋ ಅಷ್ಟು in detail I'm briefly explaining everything. So ಇಷ್ಟು ಥಿಯರಿಗೆ ಓದ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು. For NEET exam in detail, pin to pin, you should know, which I'll make sure that you remember each and every point, and I'll make sure that you'll answer all the questions, MCQs clearly. So coming to the female accessory ducts anta helde, male accessory ducts tarane female accessory ducts irutte. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ oviducts, which is also called as fallopian tubes, then uterus, which is also called as womb, and vagina. Then coming to cervical canal ಮತ್ತೆ vagina, ಇದು ಎರಡು ಸೇರ್ಕೊಂಡು it is called as birth canal, which is the route for the expulsion of the baby out of the womb. It is called as birth canal. They might ask in MCQ. ಕೇಳಬಹುದು ಇದನ್ನ. So remember this. Then wall of the uterus is actually made up of three types of cells, epithelial cells, that is perimetrium, myometrium and endometrium. It's important. I'll explain what is this in while talking about the menstrual cycle. Then coming to female external genitalia, three parts agi it is divided. One is mons pubis. It is a cushion of fatty tissue covered by skin and pubic hair. And then labia majora, which is surrounded by vaginal opening, and labia minora, which is a small thing which is around the vagina. So vaginal opening is covered by hymen, which is a thin layer of tissue which is present in in all female. So clitoris is just a tiny finger-like structure above the urethral opening. So clitoris, if you see this structure, you'll get to know that is actually it's a thin finger-like structure which is present here. Then it is cervical canal. This is cervix. This will together form birth canal, and this is fallopian tube, right? A fallopian tube ಅಲ್ಲಿ 3 organs, 3 parts ಆಗಿ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ: isthmus, ampulla and infundibulum. So in detail ಇದು ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ ನೀಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ಗೆ. I'll explain during that. So for now, while labeling, you have to remember all this if they ask you about the structure of female reproductive organ. Then uterine cavity gottu, that is uterine fundus. This is ovary, a pair of ovary. Then endometrium, myometrium, perimetrium, or the 3 types of epithelial cells which the uterus is made up of. Okay, now it's very clear, right? You have understood till here. So I also told that mammary gland is also a gland which is associated with the female reproductive system. So it will coordinate with the other female reproductive organs to perform the functions of fertilization, then childbirth and parturition, right? So here it contains a glandular tissue of variable amount of fat. So the mammary gland is basically made up of fat. So it is completely made up of fat actually. So it has mammary lobes in irutte. In mammary lobes, it will open to alveoli. Alveoli is just a cluster of cells. Unlike the lung alveoli, it's just a small opening. If you could see, idella fat cells actually, which covers the entire thing. So this is okay. So this is the alveoli, which is just a cluster of cells, group of cells. This will open to mammary tubules. Mammary tubules, alveoli is the one which secretes milk and stored in cavities of alveoli. Milk is actually stored in the cavities of alveoli, and mammary tubules lactiferous ducts in form agate. Our ducts in the hige lactiferous ducts in the actually this milk will come out of this nipple, right? So this is a brief structure of mammary gland. So events of the reproductive system anta helde nanu, events that occur in human reproduction. First is gametogenesis, that the gamete should synthesize, right? So the first is gametogenesis. There is a clear a lot of differences ide idralli. So gametogenesis, the primary sex organ is testis in male, adu helide nan munche. So which will synthesize sperm, and ovaries in female, which will synthesize ovum, and together the synthesis of sperm from testis and ovum from ovary is called as gametogenesis together. So gametogenesis nalli first to bandu spermatogenesis, which happens in male. Idu in detail now nodona, is structure hige illi. So I have explained it. So spermatogenesis, so sperm is embedded in the Sertoli cells. Nan munchene helide seminiferous tubules alli sperm Sertoli cells anta ondirutte makle. Adralli the sperm will actually be synthesized. So it is released from seminiferous tubule. The process of release of sperm from the seminiferous tubule is called as spermiation. This question can be asked, this question can be framed. So sperm will be released. So it will actually start from the age of puberty in male. So spermatogenesis will start from the age of puberty. Remember this. And what are the hormones involved in the spermatogenesis? There are basically a gonadotropin releasing hormone which is secreted by hypothalamus. So this gonadotropin releasing hormone concentration increase adaga, that will make anterior pituitary to secrete 2 hormones. One is luteinizing hormone and the second is follicle stimulating hormone, FSH. I don't have to explain in detail about what are the functions of these because you know, I think. ಸೊ ಲ್ಯೂಟನೈಸಿಂಗ್ ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಲೈಡಿಕ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಹೇಳಿದೆ ನಾನು ಆಂಡ್ರೋಜನನ್ನು ಸಿಂಥಸೈಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಮೇಕ್ ಲೈಡಿಕ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಸಿಂಥಸೈಸ್ ಆರ್ ಸಕ್ರೀಟ್ ಆಂಡ್ರೋಜನ್ಸ್. ದಿಸ್ ಆಂಡ್ರೋಜನ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಇನ್ turn help in spermatogenesis. It will start the spermatogenesis. Whereas this FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, will make the Sertoli cells to produce a few factors that will help in Sertoli cells. So spermatogenesis. So what are the functions of these hormones? You must know, and you have to mention this while explaining the process of gametogenesis. It could be the spermatogenesis or oogenesis. So structure ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ I'll explain you in detail. So spermatogonia irate, that spermatogonia will go meiotic cell division. So here 46 is the chromosome, right? At puberty it will start, so undergo mitosis differentiation to produce primary spermatocytes. First meiotic division from primary spermatocyte in the start agutte. You have to remember this. So enayitu will reduce aitu, it will be 23 now. So then secondary spermatocytes bantu, again the second meiotic division will start, and again it will be 23 reduction, right? So the spermatids will form, and that will undergo differentiation to form spermatozoa, right? This is the clear explanation of spermatogenesis. Then coming to the structure of sperm, which is important, this question will be asked in the exam. You have to practice the structure of sperm. So sperm, basically it is divided into three parts. One is head, neck and tail. Okay, so coming to the head of the sperm, sperm head has haploid nucleus. That what is haploid nucleus? N. When I say gametes, it is always N. I don't have to explain what is N. I assume that N andre enu anta gottu. So 23 number of chromosomes iratte adralli, just 23. So because of meiotic cell division, which I explained there. Then cap-like structure of the sperm head is called as acrosome. Illi cap-like structure ide alva, this is called as acrosome, and this has enzymes that help in fertilization. Adu next heltini fertilization madbekadre. So acrosome will be having enzymes which help in fertilization of the ovum. So then middle piece illi eniratte numerous actually this is middle piece. So middle piece will be having numerous mitochondria. Why mitochondria? Think. So mitochondria yak beku. Mitochondria is the, what is it called? Powerhouse of the cell. So sperm has motility, right? Sperm has to reach the ovum. So here the sperm need a lot of energy, ATP. Adikke illi mitochondria beku. So it is having numerous mitochondria which helps in energy of the sperm motility, right? So then tail will have it is just like flagellum in the this thing. So it will help in motility, and seminal plasma and sperm together. Semen andre enu andre, what is semen is seminal plasma and sperm together will give the what? Semen. So then coming to oogenesis, this synthesis of female gamete is called as oogenesis. So oogenesis ಹೇಗಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ, it will be initiated during the embryonic development stage. You have to remember this is the basic, or this is the major difference among the spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Spermatogenesis, it will happen at the stage of puberty, whereas the oogenesis, it will happen only during the it will start right from the embryonic development stage, and this oogonia will undergo mitosis to produce primary oocytes. This primary oocytes, along with a layer of granulosa cell, give the primary follicle. So primary oocyte in the end bantu, primary follicle bantu. This along with a layer of granulosa cell and new theca, this will give the second. Just remember, primary follicle will give rise to secondary follicle. Primary follicle will give rise to secondary follicle, and the secondary follicle will give rise to tertiary follicle, and a tertiary follicle in the mature Graafian follicle barate. So this Graafian follicle is very important. So just secondary follicle enagutte, that will give the tertiary follicle, and tertiary follicle will give mature Graafian follicle barate. And don't remember too much about that. Don't worry too much about that. Just remember primary follicle in the tertiary follicle in the mature Graafian follicle barate. So see this. So oogonia, it will undergo mitosis, that is 46, right? So it will start from the fetal life. It will start from the embryonic development stage. So then the primary oocyte will undergo first meiotic division, which is completed prior to ovulation, and before puberty only it will happen. First meiotic cell division, no? So ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ 23 ಆಯಿತು. So 23 is the total number of chromosome. So it will give to secondary oocyte, and secondary oocyte will give to ovum, which is also called as Graafian follicle or matured follicle. This is a matured stage of the ovum, right? It's also called as Graafian follicle. So this will also give to first polar body and second polar body. Idashtondu beda. So just remember that secondary oocyte will give to tertiary oocyte, and tertiary oocyte will give to the matured Graafian follicle, which is also called as ovum, right? So okay, so matured Graafian follicle barutte. So this Graafian follicle will rupture into give the secondary oocyte, which is also called as ovum. So this process of release of ovum from the matured Graafian follicle is called as ovulation. So which will happen in your menstrual cycle. So this process of release of ovum from the matured Graafian follicle is called as ovulation. All these definitions are important. I think if you remember this flow chart, it's very easy to explain it in your own words. Nimma own word alli ನೀವು ಇದನ್ನ ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ explain ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಏನು by heart ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. Then coming to menstrual cycle, which is an important cycle in all female reproductive cycle or female reproductive system. So it is just a reproductive cycle in only female primates. Primates il aguntadu idu makle. There is a series of events that will happen in the female reproductive system. So it is called as menstrual cycle and heltivi, and it begins right from the puberty. Menstrual cycle, it will see, don't get confused. The gamete synthesis happens right from the embryonic stage, but the menstrual cycle, it will start from puberty. So this is it begins at puberty. It is also called as menarche. So ಇದು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗುವಂಥ ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್ಗೆ ಮೆನಾರ್ಕ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದ ಸೈಕಲ್ ವಿಲ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಟೇಕ್ ದ ಆವ್ರೇಜ್ ಇಂಟರ್ವಲ್ ಆಫ್ 28 to 29 days. In average this much of days is needed. And one ovum is actually, remember, only one ovum is released in the middle of the menstrual cycle, whereas in male it is not the case. There are millions of sperms are released, millions of sperms are synthesized, but whereas in oogenesis only single ovum is released or single ovum is synthesized. So what is menstrual flow? There is a flow of blood. So what is it actually? What it has? The breakdown of endometrial lining. Then helide perimetrium, myometrium and endometrium are the three layers of the uterus. So basically this endometrial cells will rupture, and its endometrial cells will rupture which is lining the uterus, and that will bleed as your blood flow, and that will last for 3 to 5 days. Okay, so that happens. When will it happen? Let's see. Why will it happen and when will it happen? We'll see the cases and the probabilities. We'll discuss about it. So menstruation is the release of ovum. So menstruation yavaga agate andre, if the released ovum is unfertilized. So if the released ovum is unfertilized with the sperm, then the endometrial cell, which has prepared itself for the implantation of the embryo, it will rupture because of the series of hormonal action, and that will lead to the flow of blood. So other things that can affect the menstruation is stress, poor health, idella barate, which is just know for the sake of knowing. In detail we'll explain it later. So menstruation enu nan helde 1 to 5th day al aguntadu, then followed by, this is just a part of your menstrual cycle. Then followed by this is follicular phase. Follicular phase il yenagutte andre, this primary follicle will give rise to Graafian follicle. Graafian follicle ಇರುವಾಗ, ಸೊ ವಿಚ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ವಾಲ್ವ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಿರೋದು. ಸೊ ಪಿಟ್ಯುಟರಿ ಗ್ಲ್ಯಾಂಡು ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ದಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ದ ಓವೇರಿಯನ್ ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ಸ್. ಓವೇರಿಯನ್ ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ ಸೆಕ್ರೀಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ವಿಚ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಓವೇರಿಯನ್ ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ಸ್? ಲ್ಯೂಟನೈಸಿಂಗ್ ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ ಅಂಡ್ follicular stimulating hormone, which will be at its peak. The concentration of this will be at its peak on the 14th day. I said it will last for 28 to 29 days, the cycle. The interval is 28 to 29 days. But here this two hormones, ovarian hormones, will be at its peak on this particular 14th day. This luteinizing hormone will secrete the estrogen, which is the female hormone like androgen. So this luteinizing hormone surge adaga, it will rupture the graphene follicle and ovulation happens. So 14th day lagonthadu, which is the middle of your cycle. I told, right, it will happen, ovulation happens in the middle of the cycle. So then remaining part of the graphene follicle yeniratte, so it will be actually this corpus luteum is the yellow plug. It is actually yellow plug which will go and plug to this mature follicle release agate. So just remember it as a kind of if orange tinbekadre hegirate, orange one piece tegidre, there will be gap, right? So that gap will be imagine that as a follicle alli eshtondu cells irutte. So graphene follicle mature agi release agoytu, there will be gap, right? Ondu kitle hannalli ondu idina tagondaga al gap irutte. So what will happen, imagine that way. So that will be plugged by this corpus luteum, which is the yellow color substance. Ali hogi adu plug agate. So pregnancy will be maintained if the corpus luteum is plugged in the particular follicle. If it's ruptured, then pregnancy will be ended there. So we'll see that corpus luteum is the yellow plug which will go and plug to your graphene follicle. So corpus luteum, what is the fate next? So corpus luteum enagbodu, it will secrete a progesterone which will maintain which will help in maintenance of endometrium. So avagadenagate progesterone secrete adaga, it will maintain the pregnancy or maintenance of endometrium without rupturing. So implantation of the fertilized ovum and events of pregnancy occurs. This is fate 1. If progesterone is secreted by the corpus luteum, then the endometrium will not, the lining of endometrium will not be ruptured. So pregnancy will be maintained. In fate 2, what happens if this corpus luteum degenerates? Then the absence of pregnancy, where there is no secretion of progesterone and endometrial cells will rupture and your period cycle will start there. So these are the 2 fates of corpus luteum. If it's plugged, what is the fate? If it's unplugged or if it degenerates, what is the fate? You should know this. Then coming to menstrual cycle, menopause andrenu, it's a ceasing of the menstrual cycle. Usually the average age will be 50, whereas in men there is nothing as such, whereas in female it will cease at the age of 50. So cyclic menstruation andrenu, it's an indicator of normal reproductive phase and extend between menarche to menopause. So menarche is the start, right? So and menopause is the end. At 50 it will stop. So this is the cyclic menstruation anta karitare idakke. It is a sign of healthy menstruation. Then coming to fertilization and implantation. What is fertilization and implantation? The union of male and female gametes is called as fertilization, which will lead to the formation of zygote, right? So enagate, insemination is just the release of semen by the penis into the vagina. You know this, I explained it. Then coming to the motile sperms, what will happen after the insemination? The motile sperm, this is the second thing, this first, after insemination, this motile sperm will swim rapidly. You had seen the tail of the sperm, so it will swim rapidly in the female vagina, and it will reach the cervix, and from cervix to it will reach the uterus. And actually ovum will also simultaneously at this stage it will be released. Ovum is also simultaneously released, and ampullary region of the fallopian tube is the region where the fertilization happens. You need to remember this, makle. Tumba important to explain you the 3 parts. Infundibulum, ampulla ella explain madidde nanu, fallopian tube na explain madvaga. So remember this. So it has 3 parts irutte, 3 region irutte in fallopian tube. So ampullary region is the one which is the place where your fertilization happens inside the fallopian tube. So followed by this is the fusion of a sperm with the ovum. So illi acrosome barutte, illi bekadashtu sperms barutte. So only one sperm can fertilize with the mature ovum. After this ella cease agbidutte. You cannot other sperms cannot even reach near the ovum. So this will enter into the ovum, and the fusion of sperm with the ovum happens there. So it's a very beautiful process. The cell or the body has evolved so beautifully to make it happen. So it's a wonderful biological process, makle. So sperm zona pellucidage hogi it will reach. So it will induce the changes in the membrane that blocks the entry of additional sperm. That's what I told. Only one sperm can fertilize an ovum. So secretion of acrosome will help reaching or the digestion of the ovum cytoplasm inna adu reach agodakke help ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. The secretions of acrosome. So sperm, which is N, which is XY, right? Either of that will go, and sorry, this X or Y, X or, okay, it should be or. So N, this is haploid, right? It will give rise to diploid zygote. Remember this. Idu keltare MCQ alli whether your zygote is haploid or diploid anta. Haploid will be having 23 number of chromosome. This will be having 23 number of chromosome. Together it will give 46. So zygote will be having 46 chromosome together, right? So coming to the implantation, how will the implantation happens? Zygote will undergo mitosis. It's not meiosis. After zygote, gametes formational matra meiosis agate. After zygote, it is completely mitosis, which is the equational cell division. So in agate, it will go towards the uterus, which will give rise to 2 cell stage, 4, 2, 4, 8, 16. Cells ಆಗಿ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ 8 to 16 ಬ್ಲಾಸ್ಟೋಮಿಯಸ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ 8 to 16 ಬ್ಲಾಸ್ಟೋಮಿಯಸ್ ಆದಾಗ it is called as morula. Remember this. So this morula will further divide into blastocyst agate. So this blastocyst is the stage where the implantation occurs to the uterus endometrium. So illi endometrium ge hogbittu implant agate, and that is where the pregnancy actually starts. So this is implantation, and that will lead to pregnancy. So here it's just a blastocyst on the structure bardidini. So it is tropoblast. Outside cell is called as tropoblast, and inner cell is called as embryoblast, and this is called as blastocele. Wherever if you see this word cele, it is just the opening. The seal is for open space irutte cell olgade, so that is called as seal. So idu probably in embryology in future classes if you take, which is a beautiful subject, you will get to read about all this. So helinalla, so this is the stage. Idu reach agi enagutte implant aitu illi. So that is the this thing. So blastocyst idu. So this is the blastocyst. It will further divide into, I'll tell you. So after the implantation, this finger-like projection, which you are seeing, placental villi anta heltivi, adu tropoblast enagate finger-like projections agi form agate. I told you, right, this is just a ball of cells. Tropoblast I showed you in the blastocyst. So adenagate, it will lead to this kind of finger-like projection. It is called as chorionic villi. So chorionic villi, along with the uterine tissue, it is indigitated. Andre, it is actually like this. It is indigitated to form along with the maternal blood. It is called as placenta. The structure is called as placenta. So what is placenta? It is the structural and functional unit between the developing embryo and the maternal body. So you need breathing start agiralla alva. There is no proper food for the embryo. How will it take its food and nutrition, and how will it excrete all the waste products? It's because of this placenta. So blood and a lot of other factors will be exchanged between the mother and fetus, developing fetus. So that is called as placenta. So what are the functions of placenta? What are the purpose of this placenta? So it will supply oxygen and nutrients to the developing embryo makle from the maternal blood, and it will remove the carbon dioxide and excretory material. So basically it is the exchange of materials from maternal blood to fetal blood. So placenta is connected to the embryo through an umbilical cord. So remember, umbilical cord is completely different from placenta. So umbilical cord is one which they cut after the birth, after the parturition, right? So umbilical cord will help in transport of substances to and from embryo. So along with this, one more function, major function of placenta is it will act as endocrine tissue and produces a few hormones which are the indicators of pregnancy. So after the implantation of the blastocyst into the uterine wall, there are a few hormones which you can see in your blood. So usually when the pregnancy is tested, there are strips which will give a lot of indicators, like stripes on the pregnancy testing kits. So which are these hormones? These hormones are used. Human chorionic gonadotrophin irbahudu, human placental lactogen irbahudu, estrogens and progesterones, ಇನ್ನು ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಈ ಪ್ಲಾಸೆಂಟಾ ಎಂಡೋಕ್ರೈನ್ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂ ಆಗಿನೂ ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. So what is ovary? It's just ovary will also secrete this kind of relaxin in the later phase of pregnancy, which will help in parturition. Relaxin, the name itself says what its function is. So estrogen, progesterone and ಕಾರ್ಟಿಸೋಲ್, ಪ್ರೊಲ್ಯಾಕ್ಟಿನ್, ಥೈರಾಕ್ಸಿನ್ ಇದೆಲ್ಲಾನು ಮೆಟರ್ನಲ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್ಡಲ್ಲಿ ಆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ದೀಸ್ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಮೋರ್ ಯೂಶ್ವಲಿ. ಸೊ ಕೆಲವರು ಹೇಳ್ತಿರ್ಬೋದು ಥೈರಾಯ್ಡ್, ಪ್ರೆಗ್ನೆನ್ಸಿ ಥೈರಾಯ್ಡ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ವೈ ಇಸ್ ಇಟ್? ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಹೈ ಇನ್ ದ ಮೆಟರ್ನಲ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್. Why will it be high? It will help in supporting the growing embryo, that is fetal growth ಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರತ್ತೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮೆಟಬಾಲಿಕ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್, ಮದರಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಮೆಟಬಾಲಿಕ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇಟ್ ಕುಡ್ ಬಿ ಎನ್ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ಮೆಮರಿ ಗ್ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಇರಬಹುದು, ಆರ್ ದರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ವೆಯ್ಟ್ ಗೇನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಅದರ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್, ಫಿಸಿಯೋಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕೀಪ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಮೆಟರ್ನಲ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್. ಸೊ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಇನ್ ಮೇಂಟೆನೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ರೆಗ್ನೆನ್ಸಿ. ಬೇಸಿಕ್ function of all these hormones is to maintain the pregnancy or healthy growth of the embryo is the main thing which will be helpful. So after implantation agate, this inner mass of embryo, I showed you this blastocyst ella helde, topoblast ella helde. So ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ the inner mass of the embryo, outer layer ectoderm ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, then inner layer will be endoderm and the middle layer will be mesoderm. So basically ಇದು 3 layers ಆಗಿ divide ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Then coming to inner mass, which is of stem cells, which will lead to totipotent. Inner mass of the embryo is actually made up of stem cells. What are stem cells? They have totipotency. What is totipotency? It has the ability to form to any of the cell, any of the tissue ಆಗಿ ಅದು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಗಬಹುದು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ the name itself says it has total potency. It has total potency. So totipotent, pluripotent and multipotent ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ಓದ್ತಾರೆ ಸ್ಟೆಮ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ಗೆ, ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ನೇಚರು. ಸೊ the inner mass of the embryo will be having totipotency. So what is parturition and lactation, which is almost the end process of the pregnancy? So parturition andre eno? In humans the gestation period is actually 9 months, which will vary in other primates, and vigorous contraction of the uterine wall or the uterus to end the pregnancy and the expulsion of the fetus outside the canal, birth canal, is called as parturition. They might ask this. So it is also called as fetal ejection reflex anta heltare, which will release oxytocin release agate. So it will reduce the pain and it will have other functions also. So that is called as parturition. And oxytocin level ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆದಾಗ stronger uterine muscle contraction ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So it is dependent on each other. So stronger uterine muscle contraction ಆದಾಗ there will be increased secretion or increased release of oxytocin, whereas the other way is also true. Whereas increased oxytocin ಮತ್ತೆ uterine contraction ಗೆ help ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, that will lead to the parturition, which is the expulsion of baby outside the womb or birth canal, through birth canal. So infant is delivered and the placenta is also expelled out of the uterus. So placenta kuda banbidate aachege. So where that will end the process of pregnancy. So then mammary gland during pregnancy, the mammary gland alliruntha cells ella differentiate agi, that will lead to the secretion of milk, and that is called as lactation. So only in pregnancy this corpus luteum ಏನೇನೆಲ್ಲ ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಮಾಡಿತ್ತೋ ಅದೆಲ್ಲಾನು ಲ್ಯಾಕ್ಟೇಷನ್ಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳೇ. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಲ್ಯಾಕ್ಟೇಷನ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇನಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಫ್ಯೂ ಡೇಸ್ ಮಿಲ್ಕ್ನ colostrum ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, which is rich in antibodies. If you know, you can comment which antibody is present in colostrum or mother's milk. You can comment this. It's just a quick revision. So here it ends. So ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, this is the last stage, final event of the pregnancy ಮಕ್ಕಳೇ. So it will end in this particular parturition. Okay, so this is all about human reproduction, which will carry about 10 marks. So next coming chapters, which will be biotechnology, its applications ella kelidri, adu ella next barate, and MCQs will also be coming in the future classes. Thank you for watching.